Welcome to Nepal Now. I'm Marty Logan. In less than a month, COP26 will have begun. Because of the shocking and destructive fires, floods, droughts, and other climate disasters worldwide in the past year, it's a good guess that more people than ever will focus on the global climate meeting in the UK. How much will the leaders of the richest and most polluting countries promise to cut greenhouse gas emissions that cause global warming? And how much money will they pledge to poorer countries to adapt to the new dangerous climate realities? Those are the questions that everyone will want answered. Meanwhile, every day, people on the ground have no choice but to adapt in order to survive in a new world of intense rainfall, heat, and cold. In Nepal, women are especially affected. They must walk further to fetch the day's water, tend to family members who become ill from previously unknown diseases borne by mosquitoes flying ever higher into the hills, and, as they increasingly lead household farms, women must find alternatives when water becomes too scarce to grow traditional crops. Thanks to one initiative, women are also taking the lead to approach local governments for money to fund projects to adapt to climate change. Today we'll hear about 3 efforts in Bardia and Elam districts, spearheaded by women trained to identify community needs and develop plans and budgets necessary to respond to them. Speaking of money, our guest today, Anuja Shrestha from TEWA, will mention lakhs of Nepali rupees. If you don't know this term, 1 lakh equals 100,000 rupees. And now, please listen to my chat with Anuja. Anuja Shrestha, welcome to Nepal Now.
Thank you, Marty.
I'm really interested to learn how your organization is working to help grassroots women advocate for climate action. But first, can you briefly describe your organization, TEWA?
Thank you, Marty, for the opportunity. TEWA is a women's fund in Nepal, established in 1995. Its aim is to create equitable society where all gender can enjoy their rights. TEWA is a Nepali word that means support. The core of TEWA is promoting community philanthropy for women's empowerment. So we do local fundraising and invest the raised fund along with the fund received from external resources for initiatives that contribute for transformative change in the lives of women. So till now, we have provided around $7 million of grants to 544 organizations in 70 districts of Nepal. So while contributing for women's rights through various issues, we realize the intersections of women's rights and the climate justice. So we are enlightened that until and unless we address the environment issue, we won't be able to address the whole empowerment of women. For this, we started collaboration with environmental organizations like ICIMOD, ISET Nepal, Libird, and a few more organizations. So in this process, we met with Prakriti Resources Center, which was a very good collaboration for enhancing the capacity of our grassroots groups on climate change and environment issues. We had organized series of capacity building trainings where our grantee partners learned about climate and gender issues, which enable them to address the intersections of women's rights and environmental justice in their work. So our grantee partners started interaction with local authorities for the climate action and effective utilization of climate budget at local level in their communities. In such a way, we started our works addressing women's rights and environment justice.
Okay, that's great. When you were talking, I was wondering, so what came first? Was it the desire to empower women at the local level that was your first motivation, or was it the desire to help women learn about the environment and climate? Or did it happen at the same time, or how did it come about?
No, it's not happened at the same time. Our first desire was to empower the grassroots women. because our society, it's a patriarchal society where the women are really backward, and there is the gender-based discrimination, violence, all things are happening in our society. So our first initiation was to empower the woman. For that, our strategy was to empower them through various livelihood projects, and gradually we shifted our initiations toward advocacy for women's right. So it was happening from last 25 years, and the climate change issues, it's not from the beginning, but when these issues arises and the people are affected in the communities, so we also realize it's the thing that also affect the woman's life. So then after we realize these intersections, for instance, it's like in our communities, the environment issues and climate change issues are led by male. It's male dominated, we can say. There are no females in decision making levels while making any environment issues related decisions. So gradually, we realized that to address the intersections of women rights and environment justice is must. So then we have started to focus on these areas also. So as we are not expert in environment issues, so we started collaboration with environmental organization, and it's really fruitful to interlink these issues and going ahead for women's empowerment in communities.
Okay, great. I understand. So I looked at a report that was done by Prakriti Resources Center, one of the organizations that you're working with. And I believe it's there that I saw two examples of this work you're doing. So, two women's groups that you're working with. One is in Bardia district and the other in Elam district. Could you briefly describe those two groups and the work they're doing?
Sure. With collaboration of TEWA and Prakriti Resource Center, we have conducted a series of capacity building trainings on gender and climate issues, and about the climate funds available at the local level, and other things also related to environmental justice. So these are our grantee groups you are talking about, who received this series of trainings. And after these trainings, they started like linking their work with the environmental justice issues. The first group is Janjagar Maila Sangh. It's in Bardia. It works for empowerment of indigenous Tharu women. It's in like border area with India. The Bardia district lies at border. It is always vulnerable to annual flood, which is caused by the rivers, namely Babai, Bhada, and Mankola River. So, what happened during the monsoon season, when there is a lot of rain, so these areas are like affected by flood. So people of these areas always suffer from human loss and the loss of cattle and the crops during monsoon time. So the organization, after receiving this series of training, it started lobby and advocacy with the local government of Badayatal rural municipality in Bardia district to address the issue. So after a series of interaction, they succeed to receive fund of 2 lakh from rural municipality for disaster preparedness trainings, which help the community people for the preparedness. TEWA also provided grant for these trainings. So in coordination with local government, they formed a disaster management committee in all the 9 wards of Badayatal rural municipality. And after that, these groups received annual budget for disaster preparedness. So the organization also received budget of 4 lakh from Bansgadi municipality also for addressing the same issue. So after the initiation of this organization, the local government started allocating budgets for disaster preparedness in the affected areas. So this is the first example, and the second example is from Elam district. The organization is Sahayata Nepal, which also received this series of trainings from PRC and TEWA. So they also started interactions with local authorities for the proper allocation of climate budget at the community level to address the issues of water scarcity due to damage in wetland areas and drinking water issues to landless Dalit laborers of tea estate. So they succeed to receive fund from Ilam municipality at first to conserve the water spring, which is used by the labor of tea estate. These landless Dalit women from tea, who are working in tea estate have to walk for 2 hours to fetch the drinking water. As they don't have their own land, Ilam municipality was denying for setting the drinking water pipeline in their area. But after Sayata Nepal started advocacy, municipality agreed to give the water, but the community people can't afford it because they were daily wage laborers in tea estate. So Sayatra set the taps in 34 households with the support from TEWA, and now they are getting drinking water for 2 hours per day, which contribute for their involvement in other livelihood works like vegetable farming and animal husbandry. So the group also advocate for conservation of wetland area in my Jogmai rural municipality. It's another place of Ilam district. They succeed to build a wall to retain the water of wetland area with the budget support from rural municipality and TEWA support it as matching fund. After this success, they are receiving requests from other communities also for drinking water and wetland conservation, and respective local authorities are also showing willingness to collaborate with Sahayatra to address like these issues in the community.
Wow. Okay. So that sounds like they've been very successful. I mean, both those groups in different ways. I'm wondering your training that you give them on the advocacy. How detailed is that? How long does it last? Is it 12 hours total or 20 hours total, spread out over 1 month or 2 months? Exactly. How do you organize it?
Okay, we had planned a series of capacity building trainings with Prakriti Resources Center, and the first training was on gender and climate finance. That was of 3 days long training. It was the initial training where they learned about the climate change issues and the climate funds available at the local level. So that was the first training where 11 grantee partners has participated, two from each organization. And after that, in the second, we organize advocacy skill development training. So that was also of 3 days. So they learned the tools and techniques of advocacy for how they can advocate with local government for the climate budget and other issues. And in the third training, it's about the process of budgeting and planning in the local level. So in third training, they learned about the process, how the local government allocate the budget, the timeline, when should they apply for grants, and all these things. So this series of trainings enable them to know about these issues and the process also, how they can get funds from local authorities. And after that, the COVID-19 strikes, and we have organized one virtual training for the same group, and that is for the social accountability on the environment issues. So they learn about accountability of their own self, how they are accountable to the issues in this community.
I'm very impressed by how much success they seem to have had, the way you've described it. And the women's groups you're working with, I mean, how would you describe the members of these groups? Are they average women, community women, or are they women who have already had some dealing with maybe local politics or business? Or how would you describe them in terms of the average woman where they live?
As a women's fund, we can provide grants to women's groups. Mostly, they are community women groups. They are like working for women's right, and some of them are also politically empowered. It's like they have affiliation in the party politics also. It's like their individual choice, individual rights. But what our criteria is, like we can support those groups who are they are working for gender equality in society, and they want to bring the change of these discriminatory norms and practices. So these are the groups, and it's a diverse level. Few national level organizations, they are already empowered and they are holding the movements in various issues like women's rights movements, from making the policies to the implementation of policies. And some are the grassroots groups who are just come out from the home, so they are unaware of all these issues and they are trying to move ahead with our support. So it's a diverse group.
Right. Okay. One other thing that I noticed when you were describing the work in Elam that I didn't notice when I was reading about it is that the two initiatives that the group in Elam did were different in the sense that the first one was very much focused on the individual level. And if I understand correctly, in the end, it helped to build water taps in, I think you said 34 houses. But the other one was much more focused on, did you call it watershed?
Wetland, it's a
Sorry,
wetland.
yeah, wetland, which is a much more kind of general community project. It's not designed for particular individuals. So, I mean, is that a focus that all the groups had, looking very much at the household level, but also at the more general community, local level? Or was that something very unique to this group in Elam?
For our grantee groups, it's about the need base. We encourage them to address the need of their community. So while working in environmental issues, this group came across the issues of drinking water in that the area where the daily labor uh, from tea estate living. So there was a water scarcity, and like as I told you earlier, we are in learning by doing process. So Sahayatra, this group of Ilam, also follow the same path. When they know about these issues from the training, so they explore the issues in their communities. So they came to know about this water scarcity. It's like the drinking water sources which are directly related in the hilly areas. These wetlands directly contribute for the sources of water. So in this way, they link it. But mostly the groups focus on the particular issues of their community, but relating with one and another. So they come up with various issues also.
Well, that's great. You must be happy that they took the lesson that you gave to them about exploring and how they could best impact the community with these.
Yes, we are so much happy looking at them like they are grabbing the issues and moving forward, also leading, advocating for these issues with local authorities. Yeah.
So if we take these two groups as examples, and maybe there are others that kind of fit into this general category, why do you think they were able to be so successful? I mean, I guess you could just say that because they took the training, but is there something more particular about why these groups were able to succeed? Did they have great leaders, or was it that everyone was more engaged than other groups, or why do you think they did so well?
Obviously, it's not only the training, because there are a lot of training happening, but the changes always not come in this way. So I think the enhanced knowledge and skill through these continuous learning sessions, and the grants on intersections of women's right and environment justice, along with climate budget and the process for it, allowed these two groups to succeed. So I think it's a continuous effort and support is necessary for all the groups around within the Nepal. And of course, knowledge and skill is also necessary to move ahead their work.
Right. So these groups, in a sense, were fortunate that they received this training from TEWA and Prakriti. But there are so many groups across the country that need some sort of support. Are you thinking that maybe you'll be able to expand this kind of training, or would it be better if somehow local governments themselves were able to give this sort of support?
It's obviously very good if the local authorities themselves initiate for these kinds of support to local groups, but it's not so easy. The political issues, and there are a lot of like difference in opinion and the issues within the local government also. So I think local authorities will not be doing this immediately, but like I wish for that as a supporting organization. Yes, definitely we are thinking for continuing these supports to other women groups also. So we are planning for that also.
Okay, I see. Speaking of politics, we both know that Nepal is a very political place. Politics are everywhere. I'm wondering if any of the groups, when they approach the local governments, were any of them kind of dismissed or ignored with the accusation that you're being political? Like, did any of the local politicians say, well, you're not serious, you're just playing politics? Or were they all listened to because they were dealing with this important climate issues?
Yeah, that's it's a good question. So we do feel some such kinds of issues with other few grantees. It's like a few groups who also receive these trainings. They also approach their local government, and the problem was that the groups follow the one political party, and the local government is of another party, so there is a clash between them. So there are few examples where some of grantee partners were not able to get this climate budget from the local government, but they are trying. Maybe they have a hope that if this government, when this government will change after another election, the time will come so that they can utilize the climate budget in their community. And sometimes it's happened, like one of the example is like in Lalitpur district, we have four grantee groups, and they collaboratively went to the local authorities for this climate budget, but they were denied. And it's the irony is that after some time, the project that they have taken to the local authorities and they denied, after a few times the local authorities they themselves organize that program. And it's so funny that is they know that they have to invest climate budget on issues of community, but there is political issues, like yeah, few are facing that problem also.
Right, right. And the fact that the local government went ahead with the same idea shows that the idea is good. It's just the politics is not keeping them happy. So that leads me to this next question about things being timely and relevant to the context. So now in a month or just over a month, the global UN climate meeting, the COP26 meeting, is happening in Glasgow, and obviously we're all talking about climate, and Nepal maybe even more so because it's very vulnerable and it has the mountains and the glaciers. and we see climate change very, very close at hand. The women you're working with, do you talk about climate as a global issue, or are they aware of it as a global issue, or are they really focused on what's happening in their local communities?
Our grantee groups are diverse groups from grassroots to national level organizations. So, a few of the national level organizations are aware of climate change as a global issues, and they are like engaged in such like programs and activities also. But the grassroots groups have limited informations on these issues. And as Nepal is so vulnerable to climate change, it's very essential to create awareness on these issues. It's necessary to enhance their capacity to address it also. So the works these groups are doing on the communities like are reflecting the issues at local level, and I feel it's necessary to link it up the grassroots issues with the global issues. But it's our role how we can like link this grassroots and the global.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, initially, when you're starting out, you have your goal and you want to really focus on that goal. And then maybe as time goes on, and I think you mentioned that other organizations were interested in the work that was happening in Elam with the wetlands. So as you make connections with people and your scope grows wider, then you start to see other things, right, being relevant.
We are also like organizing these the learning circles among our grantee groups also. So, for instance, we are thinking of like organizing a peer learning visit with Ilam groups so that they can learn from there, and they can relate their issues, how they can like link with the local authorities for their own issues. So these kind of activities, I think we have to focus more.
Okay. So these two groups, for example, that we're talking about in Bardia and Elam, once they initiate or start implementing the projects that we talked about, do you see that they're going to keep going and work on new things? Like, do you think they're motivated now to not stop only with the TAP project and the wetland project and the disaster preparedness project, but they'll keep being engaged and go back to the local government and say, okay, now we want to do this, this, and this?
Yeah, yeah, we observe the progress in their like thinking, like and linking these issues. For instance, the group of Ilam, so they have been linking with other municipalities and local authorities also for conservation of wetland and drinking water also, and simultaneously they are thinking of the other issues, other environmental issues. Like conservation of Chure region, and Ilam also lies on that region. So they are thinking like how they can link for that also, and also they are thinking about these hydropower effects. It's a renewable energy, but while construction of dam, a lot of indigenous people are affecting by this displacement and all the things. So they are thinking to address these issues also, how they can like advocate for the rights of these people and for environmental justice also.
Ah, that must make you very happy.
Yeah. It's feeling very happy, and they are getting support from other environmental organizations also, like for instance Yatra Nepal, we link them with Gaga. It's a global alliance for gender and green action, and they also receive from fund from Gaga also. And they have recently they have received a call from EC mode to know the scope of collaboration, and when they share these things with us, we feel so happy. It's like our grantee partners are growing bigger and bigger and leading the environment issues in their district, so it's make us very happy.
Yeah, it's like the thing that you strive to do is to create something that can continue on its own that's self-sustaining. Anuja, thank you very much. It was really interesting to hear about the work with TEWA and the women's groups. And I'm very happy to hear about the successes you've had so far. And I hope that this program continues to produce more successful outcomes for women working on their rights and environment and climate change. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Marty, for this opportunity.
Thanks again to Anuja Shrestha for taking the time to speak with us today. If you haven't already, please like, follow, or favorite this show now, wherever you're listening. You can also chat with us on social media. We're Nepal Now or Nepal Now Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks as always to Soraya Logan for her work on Nepal Now's social media. I'm Marty Logan. I produce this episode, and I'll talk to you again soon.